Hi, my name is Andrew Darling, and you're listening to Return Lenten Reflections from All Saints Catholic Church in Dallas, Texas. Thanks for joining us.
This is the return. Run back to you.
Welcome back, everybody, to Return, where we're taking time each day to prepare our hearts for Easter and our souls for heaven. Today is day 32. We are doing great. It's also Saturday of the fourth week of Lent. Before we go any further, please go ahead and be sure that you subscribe to this podcast on whatever it is that you're listening, whether it's YouTube or a podcast platform of some kind or some other third thing. If you're there, just find a way to subscribe so that you can stay in touch and make sure you don't miss any of our episodes going forward. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into our reflections for today. Every day we've had kind of a different topic or a specific word or phrase that we've centered on. And today I wanted to talk a lot about the word expectations and the way that we can meditate on that maybe today and think about how it can help us to continue to grow in our spiritual life, especially during this Lent. This is coming from the gospel for today, which is when Jesus is in Nazareth and he proclaims in the synagogue, during the Sabbath, he says, he reads a part of the prophet Isaiah, and he says, "By the way, this is about me," and then sits down, which is just the coolest, drop the mic moment ever. And for a while, they're very impressed, but then some people start to ask, we know who this is. We know you. We saw you grow up. Isn't this? You can't be the Messiah. The Messiah is supposed to be cooler than you, or something, or he's supposed to be from this place, or do this thing, and you haven't done those things. And whatever it is that they're coming up with, maybe legitimate concerns, but the problem here is, more than anything, that everyone has expectations about what God is and who God is and how he thinks and how he acts and what he wants us to do. And that's okay. We can't see God in the flesh the same way that the people during Jesus' life on earth could. We see him in the Eucharist, but he doesn't speak to us with a tangible, audible voice. So we have to sometimes take a step in faith and consider what it is that God's telling us to do. And, we have to take that next step whether we know what God is thinking or not. But the thing is, we often fall into this trap. I know at least I do, where I have this plan of what God is going to do or who God is. And if God does something that doesn't fit with that, I say, well that's crazy. That can't be God. That can't be, anything substantial. That's not what I was asking for. So that I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to keep waiting until God gives me the kind of sign that I want or the kind of sign that I am expecting. And that's a really dangerous place to be, because sometimes God will answer your prayers with things that you expect, whether as a yes or a no. But a lot of times, and for me personally, most of the time, God is going to break the categories that I have in place. He's going to exceed the expectations that I could have, no matter whether they are good or bad. He's going to break those categories. If I think that God's going to answer this kind of prayer with a yes or a no, it's possible he's going to give me some kind of maybe, and it's going to come from somewhere that I'm not expecting. Whatever it is, I challenge you to consider this in your life. When you pray, are you asking God, God, can you please do this and this and this? And you should petition God for whatever it is. He cares about what's going on in your life and the things that you need and want. But also, are we adding, not just in the words, but in our hearts, at the end of all those petitions, if it be your will? Are we really actually wanting what God wants, or are we just going to use God for our own purposes? Are we just going to expect him to do whatever we want, and when he does something we don't expect or don't want, then we ignore him? Are we actually going to take him as he is, and not as we would like him to be? And that's a good thing to do with other people as well. We can get into that at another time. But I really encourage you today to consider, in your own relationship with Christ, do you take him as he is? Do you listen to what he is actually saying and actually doing? Or are you only listening for the kind of things you want to hear? So thank you so much for joining us for Return today. Be sure to join us again tomorrow for day 33. God bless.